it's Alex here from Aleks Physio. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about osteoarthritis. So I hear this a lot. A lot of people see me in the clinic for osteoarthritis. There's a lot of information, there's a lot of things that we can do for people who are coming in with osteoarthritis. So first of all, arthritis, right? Arthritis is an umbrella term. There are more than 80 different types of arthritis, all with all different kinds of presentations, right? You have things like rheumatoid arthritis, you have things like psoriatic arthritis, inflammatory arthritis, and they each present differently. Most people, when they're coming into the clinic, they come in with some form of osteoarthritis. It's to do with the joint, right? So usually osteoarthritis is going to affect most commonly your knee and your hip joint. There are some people that feel it or that have some symptoms in their back, in their feet, but mostly it's the hip and the knee. So what is osteoarthritis? So basically within every joint, okay, you have a joint capsule, which is like a sock that surrounds the entire joint. And then on top of the surface of each bone that creates that joint, so for example, let's use the knee joint. You have your femur, and then you have your tibia, and you have something called, the ends of the bone, you have something called cartilage. So cartilage is basically a thin layer of tissue that allows frictionless movement to occur when you're bending and straightening your knees, when you're walking, when you're running, when you're jumping, when you're doing all kinds of physical activity. So what happens is when people have osteoarthritis, that cartilage actually starts to break down a little bit. And when it starts to break down, there are a couple things that you can see on an x-ray. You can see things like osteophytes, which are little pieces of bone that can start to develop. You can see joint space narrowing, so where the joint space gets narrower or it gets closer. You can get something called sclerosis. So bony sclerosis is basically like the stiffening of the tissue, and then you have these things called subchondral cysts. So is a fluid-filled sac that can sometimes form within the joint as well. So you have these 4 hallmark features of osteoarthritis, right? And a lot of times what I hear with people with osteoarthritis is it's bone rubbing on bone. You know, imagine how this can create a sense of fear. Every time you walk, if bone is rubbing on bone, you can just imagine or visualize that feeling. Bone rubbing on bone just sounds pretty nasty. Rubbing, so that means it's damaging the cartilage, it's damaging the bone. My joint is wearing away. You know, people say things like, "I'm gonna need a knee replacement or a hip replacement soon." You know, there's all these catastrophization that people experience when they hear that they have arthritis or specifically osteoarthritis. It's important to know that bone doesn't rub on bone. Even if you do have a lot of joint space narrowing, there's always some level of space in between the bones when you have osteoarthritis, right? So it's important to reassure people that no, it's not bone rubbing on bone. And even if you see some of the x-rays that show these things, it's not, you know, doomsday. It's not the end of the world. You can still manage the symptoms very well with doing a lot of exercise and strengthening and, you know, things like weight management, things like strengthening, stretching, movement, just getting more blood flow and more movement helps to really slow down the progression of osteoarthritis, because although there's not a cure for osteoarthritis, you can do a lot of things that can control the symptoms, and as a result, if you can control your symptoms and have less pain, then it's going to enhance your quality of life, right? So walking is a good start. Even things like bicycling, if you find walking is too severe in the short term. Strength exercises for your hip, for your knee, for your feet, right? Movement, because when we move, when we exercise, we release something called synovial fluid. So synovial fluid is basically, you have a synovial membrane which lines the inside of the joint, and when you're moving, you're releasing a little bit of the fluid that's helping to lubricate the joints. Think about synovial fluid like the WD-40 for our bodies, right? So the more we move, the more of the synovial fluid that we release, and as a result, it helps our joints feel better because we're getting more joint lubrication. This is proven in the literature. Exercise is the first line treatment for people who have osteoarthritis, and it's the recommended treatment, right? So it's about, again, seeing a physiotherapist to give you a program, an exercise program to work on, building up your exercise tolerance, building up your strength. And also weight management plays a role too. Sometimes this is a sensitive topic and people don't like being told this, but I have to, bring this up. If usually a lot of people who have osteoarthritis or the forms that are really debilitating are the ones that are overweight, if not, obese and morbidly obese. So it's really important to have these conversations about weight management. And I'm not a nutritionist, but I know, I'm allowed to talk about the basics, minimizing processed foods, minimizing excess sugar, alcohol, things that are gonna result in more weight gain, right? It's important to have these conversations because when we are overweight, then think about that's putting more load through our joints. So, osteoarthritis is very common in the population in the world, especially in the westernized countries. I think it's very important to disseminate this information and let people know that even if you were diagnosed with osteoarthritis, there's a lot of things that you can do to help slow down the progression of it, as well as, there are a lot of people that have osteoarthritis on imaging or they have all the 4 signs, but they don't have any pain. So it's not to say that the osteoarthritis is what's causing some of the pain, because some of it very well may be doing so, but at the same time, again, there's more to it. And see my other videos on pain. It's not just as simple as what you see on imaging. There's all kinds of other things that play a role. So not allowing that to determine your destiny, I think, is very important, and still doing what you can. And using pain as a guide. If it is extremely painful, then toning down on the exercise and slowing down a little bit, but at the same time, you still got to keep moving. You still got to keep doing exercises. Go see a physiotherapist, get a home exercise program. It's proven in the literature that it helps with so many people with osteoarthritis, and there are so many people that don't know this information or don't know that they can do anything about it, and just kind of think that this is something that they're going to have to live with. And again, a lot of this catastrophization and fear avoidance, bone rubbing on bone, right? It just instills a lot of fear and just makes people do less because they think that if they do more, they're going to cause more damage. The take-home messages are, there are 4 signs of osteoarthritis on an x-ray that you can find. So subchondral cysts, sclerosis, joint space narrowing, and osteophytes. The other thing that I want people to understand is that arthritis is an umbrella term. There are more than 80 different types of arthritis, osteoarthritis being a very common one. Another thing is, just because you have a diagnosis of osteoarthritis doesn't mean that bone is rubbing on bone, and understanding that exercise is medicine and that doing more exercise is going to help not cure the osteoarthritis but slow the progression of it. And the 5th thing is, just because you have or been diagnosed with osteoarthritis doesn't mean that that's the only thing that's explaining the pain. There are other things playing a role. And the 6th thing is weight management is key, and controlling the weight through nutrition, going to see a nutritionist with regards to that. So let me know what you thought about this video. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you found that this content was valuable. And let me know if you have any other ideas for some videos that you want me to talk about, or some myths or things that you hear spread around the news or the media. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks, guys.